Hello everybody, Tuffy Maggio here from Metaversity TCG, and I am going to go over Jesse Loritz's second place deck list from the Caster Society UFO CLash event. The first thing we are going to bring attention to with Jesse's list is that he is playing a pure lightning spellbook that does not splash any other colors. By not playing other aura types, Jesse elects to include 11 lightning aura. With this many aura available, you can find more consistency in your ability to play beasties and spells in the early turns. Next up are the two Lightning Storm Terra pages. This is an absolute necessity for lightning spellbooks. A majority of the beasties in this deck have stat boosts from a Lightning Storm Terra being active. The impact of having the Lightning Storm on the field will make the difference between winning and losing in the bulk of your matches. The bread and butter of the lightning archetype is Quetzalcoatlus, and Jesse is playing 4. Quetz is a top tier beastie in terms of its cost effectiveness compared to its monster stats. With a whopping 90 life points combined with its traits of Flying, First Strike, and Fleet, you will be looking to get Quetz onto the field ASAP. Quetzalcoatlus is a powerhouse of a beastie. It can deal up to 90 damage after playing one of those two Lightning Storm Terror pages we talked about earlier. And mixed into its attack is the Paralyzed Status effect, which is just icing on the cake along with everything else. Here's another beastie that is just as big as Quetzalcoatlus, and that is the Gargantuan Gliders. Jesse elected to play the maximum spellbook limit of 2 gliders in his deck, and I couldn't agree more with this decision because Gargantuan Gliders is an absolute wrecking machine with a base attack of 70 without the need for any Terras or other attack boosts. The flash trait is an added bonus to this beastie in order to prevent a targeted beastie from attacking the next turn. Don't get too excited to pull this card in the early game though, because it does cost 5 aura to contract. Another card hitting the spellbook maximum is Thunderbird. This card has a great synergy with the deck for a couple reasons. The first reason is awakening a beastie, preferably Quetz or Gargantuan Gliders, after Thunderbird destroys a beastie. Another reason is because of a unique spell in this deck called Call of the Storm, which we will talk about later shortly. Thunderbird has been a staple in every lightning deck for quite some time, and it has only gotten better due to some new cards from the UFO set. One of my favorite things about lightning is the way that you can play higher aura cost cards early on in the game due to the aura support cards. One of those early support cards new to the UFO set is Wakenian. Wakinyan's main play mechanic works in 2 parts. Step 1, cawing like a bird, caw-caw, coming into the arena awakened. Step 2 is the destroyed effect, in order to add 2 lightning aura to your pool for that turn. Now, by turn 2, you can establish board control or hold Wakenian to ramp up quickly in the mid-game. We'll focus our attention on this next card, Call of the Storm. It has been the talk of the town since its release in UFO and has quickly found its way into the metagame. This spell's effect allows you to search your deck for 2 lightning beasties with an aura cost of 4 or less with the same name and bring them both into the arena awakened. Also, Lightning Storm is automatically active that turn. However, you have to send one of those beasties to the afterlife at the end of your turn. Let's look at the beastie options. Option A would be Double Quetz, which can be a monster answer for an opponent's overpowered beastie, especially since Lightning Storm is active and each Quetz gets to deal 90 attack damage. Option B is Quetz with Thunderbird. It also happens to be the most popular because thanks for Thunderbird's effect text saying its name is also Quetzalcoatlus, it can be brought out You're ideally sending Thunderbird into the cemetery as your option to meet the spell's condition. Call of the Storm is a must play now in this metagame and would be a mistake to miss out on this card's power in a lightning deck. Looking at back-to-back spells, here's Cryptid Nation. It serves as another card allowing you to play your Quetzalcoatlus earlier. It's a 2-cost spell that allows you to contract any page from the Cryptid Nation set, thus reducing Quetz to a 2-drop instead of its usual 4. I am personally more of a fan of Cryptid Nation in the lightning decks that splash for cards such as Growth or Slide Rock Bolter, since you will then have more of a variation to contract with it. Next on the list is Phantom Car. It's a newer card that has been a staple in lightning decks ever since the Caster's Cup, and Jesse is playing 3 here. Phantom Car has 2 fantastic traits. The Spirit trait so it cannot be attacked, as well as Fleet to come into the arena awakened. These 2 traits are necessary to utilize its important power effect as a defensive utility. You may activate this power at any time during combat. Flip a coin, if heads, end combat. It's a strong power but leaves a lot to chance with the coin flip. One beastie that you definitely want to make use of shortly after entering the arena is Dingbell. Jesse is playing 2 in his deck and we can see why. When Dingbell deals combat damage to anything, it makes a 10 attack and 20 LP token for every aura you use to contract it. We have seen Dingbell generate as much as 4 to 5 tokens or even more in the mid game, and that is very, very strong. While the strength level is very high, Dingbell does lack any evasive traits to protect itself, so you have to protect it with Phantom Car or awaken it the same turn as you play it, a la Lightning in a Bottle. This is why Jesse features 3 Lightning in a Bottles in his main deck. The bottles are integral to Dingbell's optimal play mechanic by awakening a fatigued beastie, but shouldn't be overlooked as a means of coming back from a position when you're behind or to break parity. Lightning in a Bottle hasn't been seen in many lightning decks lately, but Jesse may have just helped other players consider putting it back into the lightning decks. Coming up will be 3 spells that are considered must-haves in just about every deck. The first one being Bookmark, which is a simple draw 2. Next up is the overpowered New Year's New Beginnings. When you find yourself running out of gas by playing multiple cards quickly, here comes New Year's New Beginnings to refill your hand while also foiling your opponent's planned out chapter. Now we see Power Up Red. It serves as a way to make your beasties bigger to take over the game. Giving plus 100 attack and plus 100 LP will turn any beastie into a threat that can deal with most other beasties or attack your opponents directly for big chunks of life points. Age will sometimes matter in Metazoo. To showcase this, Jesse has Balancing Beam as a 2 of in this deck. Balancing Beam is a spell that reads, deal damage to target caster or page equal to 10 times the number of years, your age in years, and the chosen caster's or the controller of the chosen page's age in years. Maximum 100 damage. This can be detrimental in matches that involve big threats, such as in the Lightning Mirror match, especially to take down Quetzalcoatlus. I'm putting my money on Jesse playing this card in most of his decks, and I definitely cannot blame him for doing so. Now that we've gone over the main deck, let's take a look at the very important side deck, also known as the Archive. Since you can trade cards from your main deck and side deck after your first game with your opponent, side decks are an essential part of answering threats that you may not have been able to answer in the first game. Jesse has some very interesting cards here, so let's dig in. First, we see that Jesse has 3 Bubbling Brews in his side deck. Bubbling Brew has 2 different effects, the first of which reads, inflict a beastie with burn 3 and deal 5 damage to it. This makes Bubbling Brew a direct answer to the oh so annoying forest deck Gumberoo, since Gumberoo explodes when burned. The second effect option on Bubbling Brew says until the end of your next turn, all beasties are dealt 20 damage when they declare an attack. This damage is not affected by aura type advantage. This effect is very good against decks that go wide by filling the arena with beastie tokens. With the brew active, those beasties will have to skip attacking for a turn, otherwise they would die. Bubbling Brew has a lot of utility, and I am a big fan of having this card in the side deck. Lightning Bolt is a spell that has utility in multiple matchups. Generally, Lightning plays 1 to 2 in the main deck, but Jesse has instead opted to play 3 in his side deck. Lightning Bolt reads, deal 25 damage to target beastie and inflict it with Paralyze. The coin flip for Paralyze is automatically considered heads unless an effect would say otherwise. This is very good against decks with beasties that have strong powers and effects, or when you want to slow big beasties down. Another utility this card can help with is awakening a sleeping beastie, commonly happening when playing Frog or your opponent has Morpheus. My opinion on this card is I would rather have 1 to 2 in my main deck because it's just so good against a lot of matchups and all the potential that it has in those matchups. Now we see 3 Toxic Waters in Jesse's side deck. Toxic Water says, target beastie loses all of its traits until the end of this turn. If the beastie was burrowed, unburrow it. These are very important for dealing with beasties that have evasive traits. Spirit and Burrow are very common traits in Frost, which is creeping up in the meta and a hard matchup for Lightning. Cosmic is another deck that has a lot of Spirit trait beasties. Let's not forget about the Phantom card in the Lightning Mirror as well. Following Toxic Water is another trait nullifier, First Anniversary Celebration. Toxic Water and First Anniversary Celebration help deal with trait-heavy decks and can make matchups more about who has the best beasties, which Lightning will always have the edge in that department. Be careful when playing this card because on your next turn, if you are looking to bring Quetz into play, it does lose its fleet ability and flying. It's a common mistake I see all the time. Playing 2 of these in the side deck is very smart, and I completely agree with this decision. The third Dingbell is here to use against decks that Dingbell is good against, such as the slower, more controlling decks that do not want to experience an arena full of token beasties. By having another Dingbell in the side deck, Jesse makes sure that he'll see it more consistently in those matchups where it counts. There's no surprise here to see Metal Man of Alabama as a 2 of. It's most likely here for the more aggro matchups. Now you may ask yourself why this isn't in the main deck. Well, the second fourth wall effect says, if there is a radio within eyesight, Metal Man of Alabama loses fleet and first strike. While Metal Man of Alabama is extremely strong, if your opponent has a radio as a fourth wall item, common for decks that don't require many fourth wall items, Metal Man just becomes a 2-drop with a 50 attack and enters fatigued. I'm sure this came in every match that the opponent didn't have radio as a fourth wall item just because of the quality stats Metal Man possesses. The last card, in my opinion, the most interesting, is Guabancex. Guabancex seems very lackluster since it costs 4 aura, has only 30 LP and a tiny attack, but because of its effect, which reads, all active Terra pages become Lightning Storm Terra and lose all other effects as long as this beastie is in the arena. I can see why Jesse put it in. The effect plays well against decks that lean heavily on Terra pages, especially the Cosmic decks, including the win condition beastie UFO. Thank you all for tuning in. Feel free to share, like, and subscribe to Metaversity. We will catch you next time.